There's Paul Hudrick, always a smiling face. A lot of negativity around this team right now. Doc Rivers had some interesting things to say yesterday. We'll chronicle some of that with Paul right now as Game 6 tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Tom McGinnis on the call, 7:30. Greetings, Paul. How are you?
I'm very well, Mike. Much better than most Sixers fans, I would say. How are you?
Twitter is a dark, dark place after a Sixer loss, isn't it?
It is. That's why I had to take the night off, man. I was like, I can't. And I love talking to people. I really do, even if we're having like a healthy argument. But I couldn't even do it because it was just so much vitriol, man. It was right. I get it. I totally get it. But I was like, yeah, I gotta take a step back.
Yep, I agree with you. My text board and my video messages are not very kind right now, but that's okay. Let's talk about it because a lot of people want to know, is this series salvageable? Can they get this thing back home? Because if you take anything from the last two meltdowns, you would say this team has lost confidence in itself.
It's possible, sure. And I don't say that in a sense of like anything's possible. No, I mean, they went to Atlanta and they won Game 3. They should have won Game 4 in Atlanta. They should have, frankly, won Game 5. And they had like every game they've lost, Mike, too. They've had a very good chance to win. You could argue they should have won. So is it possible? Yeah. I mean, but to your point, it's going to take a heck of a mental and psychological recovery because to me, that's one of the worst losses I've ever watched. And I grew up a Philadelphia sports fan, Mike, so that says a lot.
Yeah.
That was one of the worst, most embarrassing, losses I've ever seen. It would be pretty incredible if they turn it around and win the next two games. That could really maybe propel them into something. But yeah, I mean, it all starts tonight. They have to win tonight. I think Doc Rivers needs to coach a lot more desperate than he has in the first 5 games of this series. And if they get back to, if they get to Game 7 in Philadelphia, you got to like their chances.
Yeah, I mean, what about, you said it was an embarrassing loss and the way it is, and I agree. What about it is it the fact that Ben Simmons is getting cheered because he's shooting free throws at the fans? I mean, I felt like it was Markelle Fultz all over again, which is an embarrassment. Like, you're cheering an NBA player for doing the most basic of things. Like, is it that? Is it that, like, Tobias Harris essentially was a no-show in the fourth quarter? And, I'm almost, as much as Simmons, I think Simmons pisses me off or frustrates me more, Harris disappoints me, man, because I wanted to believe that the transformation he made from the Brett Brown offense to here, the decisiveness, the decision-making, he looked like a more confident player. Simmons, he frustrates you out the wazoo. Harris was disappointing because it was like he looked decisive and he looked different, and he looked like a different guy the other night. That bothers me almost more.
Yeah, I mean, it's, a lot of, and I get it. A lot of the frustrations have been thrown at Ben Simmons, and it's justifiable.
Warranted, by the way.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm a guy who defends him a ton, and he's made me look very bad. So, quite frankly, by the way he's played, I mean, and even the worst of his detractors couldn't imagine him shooting 32% from the free throw line. I mean, it's historically bad. It's one of the worst free throw shooting postseasons of all time. But I'm with you, Mike, that to me, him and Tobias, it's right there as far as however you want to word it, disappointment, anger, just for blame, however you want to lay that, whatever term you want to use, they are neck and neck because both of them for the last 6 quarters have been abysmal. And I have a hard time kind of, I get it. Joel Embiid wasn't great down the stretch of the last 2 games, and I get that, but he can't do, like, as much as, yes, he's an MVP candidate, he can't do everything. And he's playing on a torn meniscus. Like, you have to help the guy out. So, and that's where Tobias Harris is supposed to come in. Like, to your point, all season long, Tobias Harris did so well in fourth quarters and closing games out. They ran offense through him. He looked really good to doing it. He was decisive. He was getting downhill. He was taking the shots that were there. He was going strong to the rim. You've seen none of that. And let's be like the Hawks. I don't want to discredit the Hawks. There's a reason they were up 3-2. They are playing harder. They have been the better team for 3 games. They are not a great defensive team. Clint Capella is a pretty good defensive center. Outside of that, they're really not a great defensive team. So for you, Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons, to not be able to elevate your games and take advantage of the mismatches you have, I mean, it's just bad. And it's just that's the embarrassment part to me. And I just, quite frankly, I don't think that Doc Rivers has coached very well either over the course of the last 2 games. I think he could have done many things differently. And like I said, I think he's got to coach this game 6 like he should. Like he's got to be very, very desperate in this game.
Did Harris seem disappointed that they ran stuff for him all year and it seemingly they phased him out the other night?
It was he gave it. I mean, and listen, I don't want to say, I don't want to react too much to a post-game thing. Guys are frustrated. It's emotional. He was the first one to talk, so it might have just been in the moment. But it did kind of sound like, he was kind of asked why he, wasn't really a part of the offense late, and he mentioned, well, Embiid, Seth and Joe were going, and we kept running that same action, and it kind of seemed like the ball didn't really, the ball wasn't meant for me. We weren't running anything for me. And listen, I get that frustration when you're not a part of the offense. And then people are going to look at you like you and I are looking at him and say, where are you? Why aren't you doing, why aren't you producing? And I get it. It's tougher when they're not running it through you, when they've run it through you so often. But yes, I mean, a little bit of that might fall on Doc Rivers because he kept, I get it. Seth and Joel were hot. So he kind of kept running that little double drag action where it's, Joel and Ben kind of setting the double screen out top, get the either, and then from there, Seth either goes and drives, takes a 3, pass, dishes to Joe on the nail, and then lets him go to town. But I perhaps thought he was a little disappointed that maybe things didn't run through him at all. And I thought maybe there were opportunities where Doc Rivers, when he obviously saw that Joel and Seth had cooled off, that maybe that's the time that you go to Tobias, try to get him going. Not that Tobias gave you much confidence throughout that game that he was going to get it at some point. But yeah, I mean, they were all frustrated, and I get it. I mean, it was palpable, and I hopefully if you're a Sixers fan, you're hoping that they carry that over into some anger, and that's where they start off in this game 6.
Doc mentioned that he acknowledged that the free throws are mental. It's obviously mental, I think was something to that effect. But when he now acknowledges and verbally acknowledges that, is that the point of no return for Ben Simmons at the free throw line then?
Well, listen, when we talked to Ben Simmons, that was the most somber and most down I've ever heard him. In all the years I've covered him, I've never heard him kind of just sound so lost. So yeah, mentally, man, he's not in a good place. I mean, I think anyone would tell you that right now.
Does he know? Just not. He's got to know too. Like he's a 60% free throw shooter, which is awful. But if he's 60% in the series, it's over.
Yeah, they probably already have the series won. You're right, and that's what's crazy is he could do the same things he's done offensively, maybe not be a big part of this, but if he's just okay from the line, yeah, you're right. The series might already be over. So yeah, of course, I'm sure he's not dumb. He knows that. He knows he was 4-14. He knows the crowd was trying to cheer him on just to make a simple free. Like he knows all this. He's not a dumb guy. He's a smart dude. So and he's prideful. I'm sure he doesn't want to miss free throws. And he acknowledged that it was mental. It's in his head right now. So I don't know if I'm Doc Rivers, I have to try to find a way to get him confidence back. So whether that's maybe instead of trying to run things through Joel Embiid early, maybe you try to run it through Ben Simmons early. Try to get him into the flow of the game early on and get him some confidence and get him up, get him a couple easy buckets and make him feel good about himself so that when he does get to the line, maybe he has a little bit more confidence that he's going to make them. Doc tried to say that he didn't think that it was bleeding over, but I mean, come on, 4-14. How can that not bleed over to the other parts of your game? How can you not feel as confident when you have the ball in your hands and when you're driving to the basket, when you're shooting so poorly from the line? So yeah, if I'm Doc Rivers, I want to try to do something early to get him going, get him involved in the offense to try to get his confidence up a little bit.
Oddly enough, though, Paul, they have gotten going early in these games and haven't been able to hold them. So I'll ask you, the Nets played 48 minutes the other night with their stars, 42 minutes for Harden. If they get a lead, does Doc Rivers just have to say, 20's not enough, I'm going to 30. If 30's not enough, I'm going to 30. Just keep the foot on the gas.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be the message. That's got to be the message throughout this game. No matter, no lead, literally, no lead is safe. You just proved it last game. You were up 26 and you blew it. So no lead is safe. And like I said, I think Doc Rivers has to coach that way too. You can't you can't play 10 guys tonight. I'm sorry, you just can't do it. I would play 8.
But
I would play 8 guys.
We've all seen the stat. He has blown the biggest leads in NBA playoffs. 5 of them are his of all of them.
Right.
And is it because this is what he does? He plays and he sticks to it. But let me ask you this. Did he hint that he will shorten the bench?
He's always kind of plays it coy with the bench stuff. Like I never want to read too far into him with the bench stuff because he never really gives us a straight answer, or he'll say something and then do the complete opposite. Like he has done that consistently all season long. At one point he told us that all bench lineups are going to be done once the playoffs start. He told us, oh, these guys on the bench aren't really going to be playing a lot of minutes. And then he continues to play either all bench or mostly bench lineups. So like I can't even take him for his word. Listen, if it were me, it's 8 guys. And quite frankly, I'm not playing Dwight Howard because I don't think Dwight Howard has been good in this series. He's been a big minus whenever he's been on the floor. The team seems to go the other way. I'm playing Ben Simmons at the 5, and that could be another way to get Ben Simmons going. Use him as a screener and a roller. Get him in those short rolls, finding shooters. Maybe get him and Tobias and some pick and roll together. Find a way to get them both involved. Get them both going. Get out and run. When Joel Embiid's off the floor, tell Ben Simmons to go get rebounds and run. He can do the things that Dwight does, right? He can screen, he can roll, he can get offensive rebounds. He's not the shot protector Dwight is, but Dwight really hasn't been that great of a shot protector or a rim protector, if we're being honest. So, if it were me, like Ben Simmons is playing the 5, and I'm going with 8. And my 8 are probably this, and I'm also starting Matisse Thybulle, quite frankly. And then my 3 off the bench are Hill, Milton, and Korkmaz. That's how I'm riding it. That's how I would do it if I was Doc.
Yep, I got to shorten it too. I agree with you there. This is all or nothing, and nothing meaning if they lose this, they're done, which means you got to ask the question, Paul, if they lose this series, big changes, or, hey, Doc was only here for a short offseason. Let's see if he gets a full camp with these guys. Or does Daryl Morey say, I've seen enough?
So I don't think it's quite that black and white. I think you're not going to – so let's say, that, like you said, this ends and 6 or 7 games, whatever. They lose this series. They go home early. It's a disappointment. There's no two ways about it. You were the number 1 seed, and you failed to get out of the second round. And this team, as it's constructed, somewhat constructed with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, has failed to get out of the second round. I would have some serious thoughts about if this is if that trio is viable, if the trio of Embiid, Simmons, and Harris, all at or near max players, if they can work when none of your max players can create an outside shot on the perimeter, which none of them can do. They're all great in their own ways. They're all special in their own ways, but none of them is a shot creator on the perimeter. So, but to that extent, like if I'm Daryl Morey, I'm not selling Ben Simmons for pennies on the dollar either. I need to get something for him. He's still only 24 years old. And he might have, he was almost the defensive player of the year. Like I'm not giving away a guy like that.
Are we suggesting that his value is plummeting because of this? Or would teams line up?
Plummeting strong.
Or would teams line up to say, I will take the runner-up in defensive player of the year, first team all-defender, one of the best open court players in the game?
Well, a couple of things. One, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So it's going to depend on the team. And all it takes is one GM to love Ben Simmons. And it's about fit. Like maybe Ben Simmons doesn't fit here, right? But maybe he goes, I don't know, like a team that already has a really good offense and just like, I don't know, like I don't want to like go into a whole thing, but like imagine him going to like Dallas and playing with Luka. Where Luka, he could be a really good lockdown defender, maybe play more of a traditional 4, play some pick and roll with Luka. That could be interesting. Whatever, there's plenty of teams where I think a guy like Ben Simmons could be a very big move for them and make them very good. But to me, if I'm Daryl Morey, it also has to make sense for me. I am not just giving him away. I want to trade him to a team that, like you said, views him still as a possible franchise cornerstone and a big piece. And I keep saying, like, I get it. I get the frustrations. I get the lack of improvement of his shot and all that. But he is still 24 years old, and he still has a lot of God-given gifts and could potentially be a defensive player of the year. So that's not nothing. Those things all matter. So I'm not selling low. I want something in return if I'm Daryl Morey.
Real quick, Monday when you are back, post-mortem or getting ready for the Eastern Conference Finals?
Man. I don't – so to me, here's what I think. I think if they win Game 6, they win Game 7. I really do. I think at home,
they ain't
I
losing
think they
3
do.
games at home in this series. I agree with that.
That's – yeah. Like, well, I didn't think they were going to lose 2. But,
me neither.
Yeah, but no, but I do think – I think because if they can – Mike, if they can overcome that mental and psychological hurdle and move on from that last game enough to win Game 6 on the road – I feel pretty confident that they can then come home and win Game 7. With that said, I don't feel great about tonight because I think it's going to be such again, an emotional thing, emotional battle. And I think the Hawks feel really good. Like the Hawks feel like, go ahead, you can go 20. We're going to come. Like they feel like they're almost indestructible. Like they can come back from any lead now.
Yeah.
So I don't feel great about the Sixers' chances of winning tonight. But if they do, I think they win Game 7.
All right, Paul Hudrick, 97.3 ESPN.com. Check him out after the game at Paul Hudrick on Twitter for tonight. Paul, I'll talk to you Monday, man.
Sounds good, Mike. Take care, man.
He is going to be covering that game, of course, for the website, 97.3 ESPN.com.